We are running out of time. If Pariah creates more worlds, it could cause the whole multiverse to be overrun by the Great Darkness. But this isn't the Great Darkness. This is Pariah's own insanity, his own power gone mad. Dude, you need serious help. Whatever voices you're hearing in your head, that's not the Great Darkness. Pariah was a certifiable loon. He thought he was talking to some Great Darkness, when it was just voices in his head until he bit the dust. But the darkness he created lives on. We know something he doesn't know. If I make him see the truth about the Great Darkness, maybe it will give us the opening we need to stop him. Pariah manifested the Great Darkness out of his own warped mind. It's labeled more than a few times as a construct of his own making. The idea of the Omniverse was false. It created an imbalance in our multiverse, which I believe Pariah was manipulating. No matter where you look at the end of this series, it's said repeatedly and explained repeatedly that the Great Darkness was not real, and that it was a projected evil that came from Pariah. And with that in mind, Pariah's version of the history of the DCU, as it was described in the Incarnate series, was a complete fabrication as well. A deluded, made-up origin story that puts Pariah at the center of everything as the most important being there is. He labels Darkseid as the closed fist of the Great Darkness and the empty hand as the left side hand, but he himself would of course be the mind of the Great Darkness, placing himself as the social alpha in this new cosmology, about to be overrun by the sudden merging of an old multiverse into a much smaller new one. The older Swamp Thing series defines the darkness as the concept of evil, which can also logically be interpreted as a desire for destruction or chaos or obliteration. This statement is from a much older series. However, even the new series of the Dark Crisis era has labeled the Great Darkness as the personification of annihilation. It would be a misnomer to ignore all of this, as any logical educator would never say that the origin story presented by Pariah's own poor mental health aspects would be what we should be running with, instead of what actually is the origin of the DCU. Some people believe the light is the overvoid, but we know that isn't the case because a character named Dr. Light absorbed this light entirely and also defined it as the light of creation that made the multiverse. The overvoid didn't make the multiverse. In fact, quite the opposite. As Grant says, the overvoid is unaware of how or why it got there. It also goes as far as sending an investigator to figure out why the multiverse is even there, because it knows it didn't give permission for it to be there in the first place. So the light can't be the overvoid. That much is clear. However, we need to dive further into this to explain why Pariah's version of the origins of the multiverse are so vividly not to be trusted, and clearly just a warped mind presenting his own revision and preferences for how he wants it to be. Previously, there was Monitor Mind only. This is stated in Final Crisis and the Multiversity. In Dark Crisis, according to Pariah, the one everyone confirms is totally crazy, says that the Great Darkness was there first. This conflict is resolved with more details in the same scan as we learn more about this darkness. It says the light was birthed and created, but by who, why, and for what? The overvoid in Final Crisis is eternal and uncreated. According to Final Crisis and the Multiversity Guidebook, this is the second contradiction, and evidence that Pariah is a total nutcase and making up his own hierarchy and origin stories. He says the darkness screamed at the light, and this caused the multiverse to be created in the light. The Monitor Mind, the overvoid, makes it clear that it doesn't understand or know how the multiverse flaw got there. This is the third contradiction. But moving forward, there is now a struggle between the dark and the light according to Pariah, yet the overvoid origins state that it sealed the flaw and left, never to interact with these things again until maybe perhaps when Captain Allen attempted to contact the Monitor Mind during the Superman Beyond events in Final Crisis. There was no struggle or truce with the overvoid in that series. It went unconscious again after that. So that's the fourth contradiction, that the dark went to slumber, and the light stayed awake and active. The overvoid, though, disabled itself and went back to non-being. The light is said by Pariah to have fashioned Mar Novu. However, we know that Mar Novu was the son of Perpetua and not the light. This is a fifth contradiction. Following this, the Anti-Monitor is said to be cursed by the Great Darkness, and we learn that Mandrak was the first to be cursed or corrupted by the Great Darkness. This is the sixth contradiction in just one scan from Pariah. showing us that nothing of his lore origins is authentic, and that the authors wanted it to appear this way on purpose so that fans are supposed to take this as Pariah is just crazy, which is shown later as a confirmation that nearly everyone in the comic believes near the end of the series. Mandrake was the original thing and first thing that the Great Darkness met, according to Pariah. However, Multiversity shows us that Mar-Novu and the Anti-Monitor were there first, and that the Overvoid noticing their schism of differences and qualities between them is what forced the Overvoid to become infected and to send Mandrake into the multiverse to investigate it. This is the 7th contradiction on just one page. Pariah says Mandrake predated Mar-Novu and all the other villains. Multiversity says Mandrake came after the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and he was sent in to the flaw of the multiverse to go deeper. It then says the light created the monitors, and that it set them up to safeguard against the Great Darkness. However, the monitors were made by the Overvoid in Final Crisis to oversee the flaw. There is no mention of any other motive behind their creation. The Great Darkness lays above the light and far beyond the Overvoid, according to Pariah. However, the Book of Limbo, the author Avatar's book from the realm of continuity flow itself that presides over the entire DCU, says there's nothing beyond Limbo but the Overvoid, an 8th contradiction on just one page. The claims of the Overvoid being the light are unfounded and baseless and refuted directly in the comics, as Dr. Light absorbs all of this special light factor, defines it as what created the multiverse, and then proceeds to insist that she requires the Speed Force's help to help her spread the light around. This is a being who, according to some scalers, just absorbed the presence, the father of Lucifer Morningstar, the hands, and the judges of Perpetua's race, who are all stronger than the Darkest Night and Cosmic Wonder Woman, the Source itself, and also the Overvoid, along with the entire greater Omniverse. This being is named Dr. Light, and she absorbed all of this, and then said she cannot accomplish her feat of pushing back the Great Darkness without the help of the Speed Force from the Flash running around the multiverse as fast as he could. How can a being who has the power of the totality itself, the Source, the hands, the judges, the Overvoid, and everything within the light of the greater Omniverse, how can she be a slave to the power of the Speed Force? She absorbed the beings who made the Speed Force and who empower it. What need does she have of such a lower tier element of the multiverse that is tangible and far below conceptual entities in the sphere of gods who are beyond the scope of the concept of speed? All of these problems are purposely written into the Dark Crisis series. It's not bad writing or plot holes. The point of the story was to show Pariah's madness and how far he's willing to go. And some scalers took this delusion of Pariah as absolute law, when everything he was saying and doing was a total fabrication and not authentically real. Pariah's Great Darkness revision is intended by the authors to be false, and clarified later near the end of the series as totally insane. Lex Luthor figures this out and says that the multiverse imbalance was something that Pariah was taking advantage of. The imbalance was Multiverse 2 from Crisis on Infinite Earths, the one deleted by the Anti-Monitor. It was actually saved and stored elsewhere in the Orrery of Worlds, and it was causing an instability issue in the local orrery. Pariah latched onto that and found a way to access it and bring it back, causing the old multiverse that was deleted to squish into the new Local 52 section of the Orrery of Worlds. And when this happened, near the end of the comic, Pariah is shot by a particle beam of antimatter and dies, and the Great Darkness immediately starts to die off. Pariah's revisionist history of the DCU origins, with the Great Darkness being above the light, is not real. The Overvoid is the container for all things, and even concepts of non-existence cease there. The Great Darkness is also confirmed not real by multiple characters in this comic, and Lex Luthor confirms for us that the notions of the greater Omniverse are all fabricated nonsense that Pariah was hosting and causing others to believe in. The Great Darkness is the darkness in a room with no light. Place a candle in the room, and the glow around the candle will pierce the dark and create a short glow effect. This is the light of creation around the multiverse. However, the Overvoid is the entire room that holds this candle and the darkness. The darkness is not above the room. The room contains the dark and the light. The container space is the overvoid. The darkness is the empty nothing factor, where there are no creations in the overvoid. The light is any creation itself individually that emanates a radiance around itself. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe and comment, and let me know what you think of this, and what you think of the comics explaining that Pariah's version of all of this is absolutely insane and not the truth.